Do you want to be ahead of the game for the latest in arts, music, cuisine, and entertainment across the Middle East's most dynamic capital cities? Al Monitor is proud to launch our City Pulse newsletters, focused exclusively on local news, starting in Riyadh, Dubai, Istanbul, and Doha. Each week, our on-the-ground writers in these cities cover the latest cultural happenings and trends, so you have everything you need to know for the best local experiences. To subscribe for free, go to almonitor.com, that's al-monitor.com, and sign up on our newsletter page.
Welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief. I'm Adam Lucente. In an interview with Al Monitor on Tuesday, U.S. Special Envoy for Syria, Tom Barrack, described what he said are, quote, expectations Washington has for the new Syrian government, as well as fears that Syrian President Ahmed Sharaa could be assassinated. His comments follow the U.S. issuing sanctions relief to Syria late last month in an effort to help stabilize the country as it rebuilds from years of war. Shara's Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, an Islamist group previously affiliated with al-Qaeda, led the rebel offensive that toppled longtime ruler Bashar al-Assad in December and now dominates the transitional government. Things have been relatively stable in Syria since Assad's fall, but there are concerns about ISIS's presence, the plethora of foreign jihadists in the new military, and sectarian violence targeting Alawites, Druze, and other minorities. The U.S. has been heavily engaging with the new Syrian government since it came to power, and Barrack visited Damascus late last month, shortly after U.S. President Donald Trump met Sharaa in Saudi Arabia. But what exactly are the Trump administration's goals in Syria? In this episode, we hear from Al Monitor's State Department correspondent, Elizabeth Hagedorn. Elizabeth, who conducted the interview of Barrack, takes us through the Trump administration's thinking on Syria, including its desire for Damascus to crack down on radical groups, why they fear Sharaa could be targeted, and an end to so-called nation-building in U.S. policy. Hope you enjoy. Elizabeth, welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief.
Thanks, Adam. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. What would you say are the U.S.'s overall goals in Syria? And also, why is the Trump administration exerting so much effort engaging with the new government in Damascus?
Well, if you ask Tom Barrack, the goal is really to remove the barriers that are hindering Syria's economic recovery. That involves lifting sanctions, the first wave of which we've already seen from this administration, as well as rescinding export controls and other designations that are either outright prohibiting investment in Syria or have created a chilling effect where banks and insurers are avoiding Syria for fear they may run afoul of U.S. sanctions. Barrack told me very explicitly that this is not about nation building. You know, we've learned what a mistake that was in Iraq and Afghanistan, he said. This is about giving Syria the tools it needs to thrive.
And on the sanctions note, what are the U.S. expectations of this new Syrian government now that there's been some sanctions relief on the country from the U.S.?
Yeah, well, you phrased that correctly. Expectations. Barrack was adamant that this administration is not putting conditions or demands on any of its sanctions relief, but it does expect the Syrian government to make progress in a few key areas, which President Trump and President Sharaa discussed during their meeting in Riyadh. Those include cracking down on Palestinian militants in the country, taking charge of the camps that are holding suspected ISIS fighters, and Syria one day joining the Abraham Accords with Israel.
I'm glad you brought up the Israel angle. What is the U.S. actually hoping to achieve vis-a-vis Syria and Israel? And is there any progress being made on the efforts to de-escalate between the two countries?
Well, Israel has expanded its military operations in Syria since Assad's fall, including by seizing control of the demilitarized buffer zone in the Golan Heights. So to prevent further escalation, Barrack has previously called for what he described as a non-aggression pact. Trump has gone a step further and called for Syria to join the Abraham Accords, but we're obviously a ways off from normalized ties between those two countries. So until then, Barrack said he hopes that the U.S. and its partners can facilitate what he called a silent understanding that will hopefully calm tensions between Syria and Israel.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Elizabeth Hagedorn after this short break.
Today's transformation of the Middle East is at the center of global geopolitics. Whether you're an analyst, diplomat, executive, or academic, you need the best reporting and analysis to understand what's really happening on the ground and what it means for the world. Al Monitor is the award-winning independent leader in Middle East news. From Riyadh to Beirut, Abu Dhabi to Doha, and Baghdad to Tehran, our team of over 100 expert journalists report daily on the top stories driving the regional trends. Download our mobile app and subscribe to Al Monitor to follow what leaders and decision makers are reading every day. Go to almonitor.com, that's AL-MONITOR.com, and use promo code POD25, POD25, for a discount.
Okay, we're back. Elizabeth, in your interview with Special Envoy Barrack, he mentioned that the U.S. is concerned that Syrian President Sharaa could be an assassination target. Why does the U.S. have that fear?
Well, because of the positions that Sharaa has taken, his openness to the West, his efforts to form a government in Syria that is inclusive of women and minorities, that creates an environment where you have a lot of battle-hardened fighters in Syria, many of them foreign, who joined Sharaa in toppling Assad back in December, but are angered by his shift away from a hardline jihadist ideology, which has been years in the making. Right now, Syria is working to integrate those foreign fighters into its national army, the idea being that it's better to have them under state supervision and to contain the potential threat rather than risk them joining ISIS or other radical groups. To paraphrase Barrack, the longer it takes to stabilize Syria and its economy, the greater the risk of splinter groups, basically saying this is our opportunity to disrupt the status quo.
Elizabeth, thanks a lot for your time, and we look forward to more of your reporting on U.S. Syria policy.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks for listening to the Al Monitor Brief. Be sure to follow Al Monitor for more on the stories impacting the Middle East. Until next time, I'm Adam Lucente.